It's June 8, 1982, and Argentine First Lieutenant Héctor Pipi Sánchez is flying his A-4 Skyhawk attack jet just meters above East Falkland Island. He and 3 other aircraft of Mazo flight are on a mission to hit British ships unloading troops at Bluff Cove. Their low altitude is keeping them invisible to British radar and fighter jets. Sánchez works hard to keep his aircraft from hitting the ground. The Skyhawks pop up over a rise, and Sánchez's front windshield suddenly lights up with a wall of tracer fire flying directly towards him from the gathering dusk. The British have prepared quickly and have already set up their anti-aircraft guns in the hills. Sánchez pulls on his control stick, jinking his Skyhawk from left to right. Bullets whiz past him, streaking by his canopy. He keeps scanning the sky, hoping that he can avoid colliding with the 3 other pilots in his flight and with the ground. Then, flipping open the cage on his control stick, he squeezes the trigger and fires his 20mm cannons, trying desperately to suppress the incoming fire. He keeps rolling, flying so low that British infantrymen throw themselves to the ground to avoid his jet. It's then he hears a sickening noise as bullets thump into his aircraft. He wants to shout out that he's hit, but the Skyhawks are on strict radio silence. The 3 other Skyhawks surge ahead as he struggles to stay in control of his airplane. Then, the gunfire falls away as the 4 planes exit the range of the British guns and bursts out over the cliffs to the sea. Sánchez tests his controls. Everything seems fine. He breathes a heavy sigh of relief, and then he looks up to see the other 3 Skyhawks pulling away from him. They have reached the final waypoint and have increased power to begin their attack run towards Bluff Cove. Sánchez scrambles to catch up and throws his aircraft into a turn as his friends are already diving down to wavetop height. To his right, he can see the burning wrecks of the British landing ships Sir Galahad and Sir which Argentine strike aircraft destroyed earlier that same day. Then he hears his flight leader calling out over the radio. It's First Lieutenant Danilo Bolzan, and he has spotted something. British landing craft, dead ahead. The small Royal Marine landing craft is nowhere near the size of Sir Galahad and Sir Tristram, but it still carries valuable vehicles and commandos. Attack! Sánchez reaches down to his control panel and arms the fuses on his 3 500-pound bombs. He stares through the gun sight and readies himself to attack. Everything has led up to this moment. High above, Royal Navy pilot David Morgan and his wingman David Smith are flying a combat air patrol in their Sea. As he flies, Morgan keeps watch on the Royal Marine landing craft. He scans the waters below and suddenly spots the Skyhawks. He counts 3 small triangles of brown and green camouflage zipping across the waves. A 4 south are attacking the boat. "Follow me down." Morgan rolls his aircraft over, diving down inverted. Next to him, Smith rolls his aircraft over and follows. Far ahead, and still thousands of feet below them, the lead pair of Skyhawks are almost on top of the landing craft. Morgan's Harrier is armed with new and improved AIM-9L Sidewinder, but the Skyhawks are too far away for the short-range missiles. At the front of the Argentinians, First Lieutenant Bolzan lines up his target in the gun sight. He opens up with his 20mm cannon, blasting the landing craft with a stream of rounds. Then he sets his bomb release to ripple, priming all 3 of his bombs to drop with one press of the release button. Bombs away. But only 1 bomb falls, whistling through the air and splashing down about 100 feet behind the stern of the landing craft. Malfunction. Malfunction. Bolzan pulls away, cursing his bad luck, while right behind him comes his number 2, Lieutenant Héctor. This time, there is no malfunction. Bombs away. 3 bombs come arcing down through the air, smashing into the landing craft as Héctor peels away and roars from the target. Only 1 of the Argentinian bombs detonates, but that's more than enough for the small boat. The enormous blast obliterates the stern of the landing craft in a gigantic orange fireball. Sánchez is still very far behind his friends, and while he is celebrating, he doesn't even see the 2 dark gray Sea Harriers as they dive down and slot in behind the other Skyhawks. The Argentinian pilots have no idea that they are being chased. From his cockpit, Morgan watches in horror and fury as the landing craft burns. An all-consuming rage boils up inside him, and he vows to kill the enemy airmen. Morgan lines up. The leftmost Skyhawk in his gun sight. He flicks a switch with his thumb to select his Sidewinder, and the missile's infrared seeker head instantly sniffs out the heat of the Skyhawk's engine. A bright green diamond pops up on the HUD and encloses the Skyhawk, while the missile's growling tone changes pitch to indicate a solid lock. Folks, 2. Missile off the launching rail and quickly accelerates to over twice the speed of sound. To the rear, Sánchez spots the bright flash of the missile launch. In seconds, the joy of a successful mission is replaced by blood-curdling fear. Sea Harrier. Missile in the air. Missile in the air. His warning is too late. The Sidewinder homes in on Ensign Alfredo Vasquez's engine and detonate into a cloud of burning fragments. Sánchez is horrified as he sees his friend's Skyhawk scattering across the waves in 1,000 pieces. He pushes his throttle forward and lines up Morgan's Harrier in his gun sight. He has a perfect shot. He squeezes the trigger to let loose his 20mm cannon, but there is nothing. In the Sea Harrier, Morgan rolls sharply to avoid colliding as the chute comes falling down towards the ocean in front of him. Despite the anger that courses through his veins, he feels a sense of relief that the Argentinian pilot has escaped. But there is no mercy for those still in the fight. Morgan can see the Argentinian flight leader, Danilo Bolson, dashing away across the water as fast as he can. The British pilot has used both of his Sidewinders, so he flicks the selector switch to activate his guns. Morgan lines up the fleeing Skyhawk, chasing it all the while. The gun reticle in his HUD automatically calculates the lead, but just as he prepares to fire, the HUD disappears, leaving nothing but an empty windscreen in front of him. Bugger. Not now. It's a well-known glitch with the software of the Harrier. Morgan could fix it by rebooting, but that would take at least 10 seconds. Bolson suddenly brakes hard towards him. Morgan pushes the blurred outline of the Skyhawk down to the bottom of the windscreen, trying to use the canopy bow as some kind of reference point. On gut feel, he times the release and squeezes the trigger as the air erupts with the thunder of the twin 30mm. Aiden cannons? Guns? Guns. Guns. Shells rip across the sky as Morgan pulls his nose up, trying to walk the stream of fire onto the target. But it's no use. At 50 feet above sea level in the gathering dark, Morgan might as well be throwing the rounds himself. He keeps on squeezing the trigger, hoping that something will hit home. Then there is silence. He has used up every last round. There is nothing more he can do now except pull back on the stick and hand over the fight to his wingman. He's all yours, old chap. In his cockpit, David Smith is already switching to Roger that, Red Leader. Smith pushes the nose down and surges forward. The Skyhawk is back over the land now, heading southwest across a peninsula towards the ocean and the safety of Argentina. Smith pushes forward the throttle and pulls the enemy fighter into his HUD. The seeker head locks instantly, and Smith steadies the jet, his thumb poised on the red button. Fox 2! The missile blasts off the rail and streaks low towards the target. Bolson's Skyhawk brakes hard, but the Sidewinder follows effortlessly, anticipating the enemy's flight and honing in on the aircraft. Sánchez watches, with a feeling of total despair as the missile detonates just behind the jet, sending the Skyhawk jerking violently in trailing gray smoke. The remains go crashing down into the earth and throw up a giant explosion. This time, there is no chute. Sánchez is all alone, still trailing the two Sea Harriers. He watches as the British planes pull up alongside each other and reduce their speed. If only he had his guns, he could take them both out. But instead he is completely powerless. If the Harriers come back around, he's doomed. The open ocean doesn't give him any space to hide. Then he spots it. The weather is closing in, and a dark wall of rain stretches across the coast, swallowing the hills beyond East Falkland. He turns course towards the island and punches the throttle. Then he reaches down and hits the button to jettison his remaining bombs and external fuel tanks. The Skyhawk surges forward. Flying into the rainstorm is dangerous, especially when he is just 50 feet off the ground with almost zero visibility in the dark of the evening. But Sánchez holds his course, pushing forward into the downpour. Up above, Morgan fiddles with his radar, trying to see if he can pick up any remaining contacts, but the Harrier's Blue Fox system is notoriously bad at tracking low-flying targets. Come on! All he gets are smudges of interference. He searches the skies and the wavetops for any sign of Argentinian planes, but he doesn't see Sánchez as he disappears into the clouds. "I don't see anything else out there, boss." "Copy that. I'm bingo fuel anyway." The two Harriers turn for home, with just enough fuel to get them back to their carrier, HMS Hermes. Sánchez is buffeted by the wind, the heavy rain streaking across his windshield. Visibility is just 200 meters, and he flies on instruments and scraps of vision. All the while he is preparing himself for the chase and checking constantly, but nothing follows him. No Harriers and no missiles. He heads southwest until the clouds finally break. It is here he can ease back on the throttle, taking his engine down from full power. Looking at his instrument panel, he sees that he has just 500 pounds of fuel remaining. He climbs up to 30,000 feet. His engine will use less fuel in the thinner air. He has only got one chance. Condor 1. Condor 1. This is Mazo 3. I am low on fuel. Request vectors for refueling. Then, over the radio comes a response. Comdus heading to You will see us. Sánchez pushes the Skyhawk on, scanning the empty skies. Just as his needle drops towards the red, he sees it. In the distance, a heavy four-engined KC-130 Hercules tanker starts to emerge from the gloom. Relief washes over him, but it's quickly replaced by a new problem. The Hercules is flying far below him, down in the thicker air. If he descends now, he will burn through his remaining fuel before they can even start refueling. He switches on the radio, trying to keep his voice steady. You are too low. I can't come down. Understood. We will come up to you. Sánchez knows the risks the crew are taking. The higher they fly, the more chance they will be spotted by the British. As the aircraft eases up towards his level, Sánchez eases his Skyhawk into position, inching closer to the trailing hose. The drogue basket sways around in the slipstream. His fuel gauge is already showing empty. There is no margin for error. He nudges the throttle forward and flicks his stick left and right. The Skyhawk's refueling probe extends from the nose, and he carefully lines it up with the basket. He pushes forward, and the probe slots into the drogue with a sharp jolt. Contact. Conta. Fuel flowing. Sánchez looks down at his instruments. His fuel needle still isn't moving. He taps the glass with his finger, willing it to rise. But there is still nothing. You're leaking fuel. Repeat, you are leaking fuel. Sánchez twists his head to the right and looks back along his wing. A thin white stream trails behind him, as fuel vapor leaks from his plane and condenses in the cold air. The British guns must have torn through the tanks. For a moment, neither side says anything. There is no point wasting fuel on an aircraft that can't hold it. Sánchez waits for the order to disconnect. Instead, the tanker pilot makes a life-saving decision. Stay connected. We will take you home. Sánchez's eyes widen in disbelief. The Hercules begins a slow, deliberate turn back towards Argentina, dragging the crippled Skyhawk along behind it. Gradually, the Argentinian coastline comes into view. It's only when the runway at Rio Gallegos appears that the tanker finally gives the order. Prepare to disconnect. Sánchez steadies his jet. The probe slips out, and the Skyhawk is free, but still dangerously low on fuel. There is no time to waste. He lowers the nose and begins his descent, lining up with the runway. His engine already sputters as he brings the power back, the last drops of fuel feeding into the system. The ground rushes up towards him. He is too fast and too high. Sánchez pulls the nose up, flaring the plane and bleeding off speed. The Skyhawk shakes as gravity pulls it down to earth. Then the wheels slam onto the runway. The plane bounces. Once, twice, then settles, rolling along the tarmac as Sánchez pulls back on the throttle and brings it to a stop. He looks up. The ground crew is already running towards him. Sánchez switches off his engine and raises his canopy, pulling off his helmet and throwing it to the ground. His anger and frustration finally break through the shock. All three of his friends are shot down. Two of them are dead. His only hope is that Juan Arras will be picked up after his ejection. In the end, Sánchez was the only survivor of Mazo flight. Alfredo Vázquez and Danilo Bolzon were killed instantly by the missiles, while Juan Araras managed to eject but was killed by the force of ejection. Years after the war, Sánchez was reunited with David Morgan. The two former enemies became firm friends after spending hours drinking cider and recreating the dogfight. As Sánchez put it, "Don't worry, David. We were just doing our jobs."